My 18-year-old daughter needed emergency surgery. I asked my parents to co-sign a loan to cover the cost. They turned me down, saying they didn't want to take the financial risk. Then, just days later, they boarded a $14,000 luxury vacation with my sister and her 3 kids. I didn't shout or confront them. Instead, I waited. And 2 weeks later, everything in their world began to unravel. It wasn't my first time spending a night upright in a hard plastic chair, but it was the first time I did it while fixating on an IV pole, as if staring hard enough might make the minutes pass quicker. I kept clenching my jaw, wishing I could fast forward time. Layla's accident happened on a Thursday. She had been wearing her seatbelt, sitting in the passenger seat, but still landed in the emergency room. A fractured spine, several bruises and scrapes, and a series of terrifying phrases no parent wants to hear about their child. She's stable, they told me, conscious, but something concerning had shown up in her scans. By Saturday morning, we were facing a new term, surgery. There were 2 options. The first, an advanced procedure with a 98% success rate. Low risk of nerve damage, no lasting complications. The second, covered by insurance, yes, but significantly riskier. Roughly a 20% higher chance of long-term harm, possibly even paralysis. I didn't wait for the surgeon to finish explaining the risks. We'll go with the first one, I said immediately. He nodded. It's definitely the better route, but the window is short. Her inflammation is still at the optimal point. Tomorrow gives us the best shot. Tomorrow, as in less than 24 hours away. I asked about the cost. When he told me, my stomach twisted, but I kept my voice steady. I had a plan, or so I thought. I stepped into the hallway and called my parents. I wasn't expecting celebration or even warmth, but I did think they'd step up. My dad picked up. Hey kiddo, is everything all right? Layla needs surgery? There's a procedure that gives her the best chance at full recovery, I said. But it's not covered. It's pricey, and I need help. There was a pause. Oh, sweetheart, are you sure it's not included? That doesn't sound right. I'm certain, I replied. I've been through it with the hospital staff. There's a cheaper alternative, yes, but it carries a lot more risk, like significantly more. Then my mom's voice came through, clearly on speaker. Have you double-checked with the insurance? Sometimes they'll say no initially, but if you insist... Mom, this isn't an error, I interrupted. The better procedure is newer, and it's not on their approved list. I have to pay the difference out of pocket. They said nothing. I'm not asking you to drain your savings, I added. Just help cover the difference so we can book the surgery by end of day. They're ready to operate tomorrow. More silence. Then my dad coughed and spoke. It's just... the timing's really unfortunate, you know? My mom followed, sounding gentle and reasonable. You know we leave Monday. That resort doesn't allow cancellations past the 7-day mark. The $14,000 resort vacation. That one. She let out a quiet sigh. It's a family thing. We already promised the kids, and your sister has been looking forward to this for months. Layla might end up paralyzed, I said. My dad responded, That's not fair. You're putting us in an impossible position. It's not that we don't care. It kind of feels like you don't. We're not doctors, he went on. Maybe the less expensive option is perfectly adequate. If insurance covers it, maybe that's a sign it's good enough. Dad, please don't tell me my daughter's spine is less important than a hotel booking. I'm just saying sometimes they try to push these expensive procedures. I mean, are you absolutely sure this isn't one of those things where hospitals upsell you? I'm not buying an extended warranty, I snapped. This is her spine. My mom lowered her voice. You're very emotional right now, and I get that. But maybe you should slow down before making big financial decisions, especially with your job being what it is. I have 2 jobs. I've always paid my bills. I've helped pay your bills. That's not fair, she said, sounding hurt. You chose to do that. I chose it because I thought you'd do the same for me. Well, if we had more time to plan, there isn't time. Another silence. I see. I said, so the answer is no. We just can't. My mom said softly, We're not in a position to take that kind of financial hit right now. Got it? I hung up. I didn't cry. I sat on the bench outside the hospital, and for a minute I just stared at a pigeon limping. Across the sidewalk, I remember wondering if it had a name, if it had parents, if its parents would have paid for surgery if they could. Then I got up, walked back inside, and opened my laptop. The emergency loan form wasn't difficult. Just long click here. If you accept the interest rate, click here. If you agree to the terms, click here. If you're out of options, I submitted it and waited. Approved. But only partially without a cosigner I'd qualify for about a third of what I needed. So I did something I promised myself I wouldn't do again. I called my parents back this time. My dad answered alone. Hello, it's me. I said I found a loan, but I need a cosigner to unlock the full amount. You wouldn't have to pay a cent. I'd handle everything. Another pause. They were big on pauses. Look, your mother and I talked. We're not comfortable putting our names on any financial paperwork right now, especially with all the uncertainty these days. You mean uncertainty, like your granddaughter's spinal cord. It's not that simple, isn't it, though? I've had identity theft in the past, he added. You never know with online lenders. It's a bank, I said flatly. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Thanks anyway, I hung up again. This time I didn't sit down because something in me had shifted. I wasn't just a mom in crisis anymore. I was a woman with nothing left to lose and a daughter to protect. You know that moment when everything clicks, when suddenly all the weird little things from your past line up like puzzle pieces and the picture you've been avoiding finally stares back at you, yeah? That was me in the hospital waiting room running on vending machine coffee in fury, realizing my parents were exactly who they'd always been. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. I used to tell people I had a normal family. Not perfect, not dramatic, just normal, middle class, emotionally constipated, into budget vacations, and passive aggression. We had a lot of rules growing up. Don't talk back. Don't cry in public. Don't expect praise for doing the right thing. That last one was a favorite, my dad would say. You don't get a trophy for being decent, which is rich coming from a man who once called me sobbing when his steak was overcooked on Father's Day. I was the firstborn, the test run, essentially. My sister Megan arrived 2 years later, and from that point on, it felt like I became background noise to her spotlight-stealing presence. She got the brand new clothes, the upgraded toys. When I asked why she ended up with the pristine Barbie while mine was the one missing a foot, Mom shrugged and said, well, we're in a better financial place now. Like 2 years somehow made the difference of a generation. And as we grew older, the favoritism only became more pronounced. Megan got private dance coaching and a full-blown Sweet 16 bash. Me? I got a gratitude lecture and a cupcake from the gas station. Still, I didn't protest. I told myself maybe the finances really had improved. Maybe this was just how growing up works. Maybe some of us are meant to sit quietly on the sidelines while our siblings get handed the deluxe version of childhood. Then, at 20, I got pregnant, and suddenly I wasn't just an overlooked supporting role. I was the cautionary tale. My boyfriend back then, Layla's father, was a mistake I corrected fast. Verbally abusive, manipulative, and broken in more ways than one. When I finally left him, I naively thought my parents might say something like, "We're proud of you for standing up for yourself." Instead, Mom asked if I was planning to move back in. When I said no, she looked visibly relieved. They didn't offer any help, not once. No babysitting, no questions about how I was holding up or whether I was getting any sleep. They stayed on the sidelines, treating me like I'd humiliated them in front of people who weren't even watching. I worked in HR during the week and coached clients on weekends. Isla often came along to seminars, quietly coloring in the back of the room. She never complained, never once asked why Grandma never called. I think she understood early on that love in our family came with strings, and that she wasn't the favored one. So I made it work. I never asked them for money. Not when the rent climbed. Not when Isla needed braces. Not even during the flu that had me so out of it I thought I was hallucinating my own voicemail. And then, over time, the roles flipped. After retirement, my parents downsized into a condo with a rooftop hot tub. Dad said it helped with his back pain. Mom said the guest bathroom lighting at the old place wasn't flattering. I started helping with expenses, quietly. A few hundred here, a mortgage top-up there. I never tracked it. I figured that's what you do for family. That's what they would have done for me, right? Wrong. Megan never chipped in, not once. But her kids, they got it all. Laptops, ski vacations, an in-ground trampoline, built right into their backyard. I have no idea who actually needs a trampoline built into the earth, but they had one. Then my grandmother passed away. Margaret was different. Smart, direct, and slightly intimidating, especially in how she could calculate compound interest without breaking a sweat. She and Isla were close. They'd spend hours bonding over investment plans like it was some kind of accountant's version of Monopoly. I never fully understood it, but I was thankful they had that relationship. Someone who recognized how brilliant Hila was. When Grandma died, I assumed everything had been left to my parents. They acted like it anyway. No discussion of a will, no family meeting, just a vague, it's all taken care of. And then suddenly they were rolling in cash. Trips to Greece, luxury handbags. Megan's kids were gifted a car, a brand new one. Not a starter vehicle, a sleek SUV with a giant bow on top like something straight out of a commercial. That's when I stopped helping them financially. It felt unnecessary, but I didn't say anything. I let it go until Layla's accident and the call I made from that hospital room until I asked them for help, and they said no, and not just no. They made it sound like I was the problem, like I was being impulsive, like choosing the safer surgery. The one with the actual success rate was some wild financial whim I'd cooked up between trauma naps and paperwork. I walked out of that call, realizing something I should have seen years ago. They didn't help because they didn't care. Not in the way people pretend to care, not in the way families are supposed to. They helped when it made them feel good, when they could be seen doing it. When Megan posted a thank you online with sparkly emojis. But me, I was too self-sufficient, too quiet, too unwilling to beg, and Isla. She was never really theirs in their eyes. Not the way Megan's kids were, not the way they wanted their legacy to look. But you know what Isla doesn't need? Their legacy. She has her own, and they're not in it. I think the worst part wasn't even the second. No, it was what came after that dead silence while my mom said, "I'm sorry, honey. I really am. But we're not comfortable tying our name to something like that." Something like that meaning saving their granddaughter. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. I just sat there staring straight ahead. Like maybe I could will money into existence. I don't remember how long I stayed frozen like that. But at some point I stopped breathing through grief and started breathing through rage. I had done everything right. I worked, I saved, I helped them when they needed it. I asked for nothing. And when I asked for one thing, just a signature, they suddenly couldn't take a risk. But they could take 3 children to an all-inclusive resort where the towels probably had their own butlers, fine. They wanted me to be the quiet, capable daughter, the one who doesn't make a scene. Not today. That afternoon, I opened my phone, scrolled past every number that shared my DNA, and started calling everyone else. It started with the mom of Layla's friend from theater club. We chatted once at intermission. I didn't even know if she remembered me. I called. "Anyway, hi, this is Helen, Bill's mom." "Yeah, sorry to call out of nowhere. She's in the hospital. There's been an accident. She's going to be okay. But we need surgery, the good one. It's expensive. I know this is insane, but would you be willing to—" I couldn't even finish the sentence before she said yes. And it wasn't just her. I called a retired teacher I hadn't seen in years. She offered to send what she could from her pension. A guy I worked with 10 years ago then me $300 with a note that just said, "For Hila, don't worry about it." Isla's violin teacher shared the situation in a private group chat. A woman I'd never met showed up to the hospital with snacks, toothbrushes, and a $50 bill folded into a sympathy card. People came out of the woodwork. Not family. Not the people who raised me, just everyone else, and it wasn't cozy, it wasn't warm and fuzzy, it was humiliating. I cried in the hospital bathroom after the 5th call, not because of the money, because these weren't people who owed me anything. They weren't people I'd sacrificed for covered bills for or helped through their divorces. These were strangers, and they were doing more for Hila in one afternoon than my own parents had done in 18 years. And that humiliation, it turned into fuel. Every call was a rebellion, every awkward ask, every embarrassed breath. It was defiance. They wanted me to disappear quietly. I wasn't going anywhere. I started keeping a spreadsheet. Half to track what I'd repay, half to stop myself from unraveling. Each name was a tiny middle finger to the people who said no. Then the door opened, and Isla's best friend walked in with her mom. Her mom didn't say a word, just handed me a credit card and said, $20,000 limit, use what you need. I started shaking. I tried to hand it back, babbling something about interest and repayment schedules and moral boundaries. He cut me off. "You're a good mom," she said. "Let people be good to you." I didn't even know how to process that, but she wasn't wrong. The surgery got paid fully on time in cash. I signed the consent forms with a borrowed pen and a trembling hand. Isla went into surgery with the best team, the best odds, and the best chance, and still, not a word from my parents, except, of course, when they found out people were talking. Because you see, some of the folks I called, they knew my parents. They'd seen the Facebook photos, the cruise, the matching outfits, the luxury suite upgrade. And when word got around that those same people refused to help their granddaughter get life-saving surgery, let's just say the whispers got loud. No, I didn't post anything. But someone did. I don't know who. Maybe Isla's friend, maybe a neighbor, maybe Karma herself. All I know is 3 days later, my mom called me 6 times in a row. No voicemail. Just endless rings. My dad texted, "Call us immediately." I didn't let them stew in it, let them sweat. I had more important things to focus on, like keeping Isla alive and upright. And that's when the other call came, not from a parent, not from a friend, from a lawyer. A voice I hadn't heard in years. Friendly, familiar. "Hi. Helen, it's Greg. Margaret's attorney. I heard about Isla. I'm so sorry, but can I ask you something?" I said, "Sure," bracing myself. "Did your daughter ever get access to her inheritance?" I blinked. What inheritance there was. A long pause on his end, then, "Huh." That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. I didn't know it yet, but that call was the crack that split everything wide open. And what I found underneath made me realize my parents hadn't just failed me. They'd betrayed my daughter in the worst way imaginable, 2 weeks after the surgery. I stood across the street from my parents' house, holding the envelope that would ruin their week and maybe their lives. It was early evening. The sun was low enough to blind me through the windshield. But I didn't lower the visor. I liked the sting in my eyes, kept me from thinking too hard, or maybe it just distracted me from the low-grade nausea that had taken up permanent residence in my gut since the call with Greg. They were due back from their cruise that day, an 11-day, refined coastal getaway with butler service and sunset wine tastings. I tracked the return flight like it was a NASA launch. Isla sat beside me in the passenger seat. Her legs still braced earbuds and scrolling something mindless. She didn't ask questions. She knew why we were there. "I don't want to talk to them," she said. "You won't have to," I replied. She nodded, then muttered, "Good," and went back to whatever she was watching. 10 minutes later, their car pulled up. My mother stepped out in a flowing white resort dress, the kind of thing that screams, "I vacation better than you." My dad followed. Pulling a suitcase that probably cost more than our fridge, neither of them saw us until I opened my door. My mom froze. I walked across the street with the envelope in hand, heels crunching on their perfect gravel driveway. "What's this?" she asked, already wary. I smiled, but it wasn't the kind that reached my eyes. "You've been served," she stared. My dad, who'd been fiddling with the lock on the trunk, looked up. His eyes dropped to the envelope. "You're joking," he said. But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I didn't say anything else, just turned around and walked back to the car behind me. I heard my mother shriek my name. My dad said something too. I think it was, "Wait, or you don't have to do this." Then, but I did. I had to. The first phone call with Greg played in my mind like a voicemail from hell. "What do you mean Layla didn't get the inheritance?" he'd asked. Like I just told him the son had stopped working. I said, "My parents got everything, the house, the stocks, the antique coin collection no one liked, but Grandma swore would be worth something." Greg was quiet for a beat. "Helen, that doesn't make sense. Margaret left it all to Ela. I know, I wrote the will. I just sat there gripping my phone like it might turn to ash." "What?" I finally said. "It was all in a trust. Your parents were just trustees. It was supposed to be released to Ela when she turned 18. She turned 18. 2 months ago. Greg swore under his breath. They never notified the bank, never filed the transfer paperwork. Nothing. So they just kept it. "Yes," he said. "That's not just unethical. That's theft. She's a legal adult. That money was never theirs." And that's when the picture finally came into focus, all of it. The trips, the new kitchen remodel, the way they'd suddenly stopped needing help with the mortgage, the way they'd started spoiling my sister's kids like they were royalty. They hadn't just failed to help Isla. They used her money to buy themselves a better life and never said a word. That night, I told Isla everything I expected, tears or rage or disbelief. What I got was worse. Silence. She listened. Arms folded. Face blank. Like I'd short-circuited her ability to feel anything. They said they loved me. She finally said, her voice flat. All those Sunday dinners, the books Grandma gave me, the dumb math games she used to play. I know, I whispered. They didn't even tell me, they just took it. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. She looked down at her lap, picked at a loose thread on her hoodie. Can we do something? She asked. Yes, I said. We can. I called Greg the next morning. He walked us through everything. There would be paperwork, proceedings, maybe even court. Isla listened carefully. Teen High, I want it back, she said. You will. Greg promised, and I want them to answer for it. He looked at me, then back at her. Are you sure? Once this starts, it doesn't stop. Isla didn't hesitate. They made choices. So will I. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, calls, signatures, and strategy sessions. Greg wasn't just a good lawyer. He was a bloodhound with a law degree and a vendetta. Apparently, he'd adored my grandmother. They messed with the wrong girl, he told me once. Eyes narrowed. It took everything in me not to cry in that moment because for the first time in weeks, someone saw Isla as more than a problem, to be ignored. He saw her as someone worth fighting for. And so did I. Especially now because this wasn't just about the money or even the betrayal. This was about what almost happened, what could have happened, because my parents couldn't be bothered to. Tell the truth because they valued luxury cruises and Instagram bragging rights over a girl who once made them world's best grandpa mugs in elementary school. Well, now they get to meet the world's angriest mom, and this time I wasn't asking. I was coming for everything they owed. Several months after we handed them that letter, the civil trial finally began. Isla didn't blink. I've never seen her look so calm. Her hands were steady, her jaw was set, her eyes were sharp enough to cut through concrete. That courtroom wasn't intimidating to her. It was a finish line. Meanwhile, my parents showed up with a lawyer who looked like he got paid by the syllable. He smiled too much and used phrases like disproportionate bequest and questionable testamentary capacity translation. They were arguing the will was unfair, Grandma was probably confused, and Isla had no business being the sole heir. Nice try, Greg. Our lawyer and Grandma's longtime friend didn't even flinch. He had bank records, transaction logs, and the original notarized. Will, he even had dated copies of emails Grandma had sent him saying, Isla reminded her of herself. One of them ended with, she's the only one who listens when I talk about compound interest. That alone deserves a fortune. Their lawyer pivoted. Maybe the parents were just holding the money temporarily, he argued. She had just turned 18. Greg didn't even raise his voice. He just asked why they hadn't said anything, why they had already drained part of the funds on cruises and car gifts and spa weekends, why there was zero record of any attempt to transfer the money to Isla or even inform her. It existed. The judge asked for silence twice, once because my parents were whispering furiously to each other, and once because Isla quietly laughed under her breath. Then came the verdict. They had to repay every last cent of what was rightfully Layla's. The court ruled they had breached fiduciary duty and misused the funds. They had no legal or moral standing to keep the money. Except surprised they didn't have it anymore. They'd spent a substantial chunk, not most, but enough that their current assets couldn't cover it. The court seized everything, the house, the car retirement accounts, vacation property, a so-called art collection my mom used to brag about, even the pearl necklace she once said I'd never be classy enough to inherit. They ended up in a cramped rental near a freeway, the kind of place where you don't open windows if you want to sleep through the night. Extended family cut contact, friends ghosted. They still hadn't apologized. They've ruined the family. My mom reportedly told a neighbor who asked why they were selling their furniture on Facebook Marketplace. Isla was quiet afterward, not celebratory, just clear, resolved. They didn't just steal money, she said one night, staring at the wall like it had betrayed her too. They risked my life, and they still act like I should be the one to get over it. I didn't argue. He was right. A week later, she gave Greg the green light to proceed with criminal charges. He gave a single nod. It won't be easy, he said. I've already walked tougher paths, Isla replied. To my surprise, the criminal case moved more quickly than I anticipated. Maybe it gained momentum because someone leaked part of the civil case summary and the media latched onto it. Or maybe the DA genuinely cared. Or perhaps it was just a rare week when justice was in a good mood. Their new attorney was no less dramatic than the last. Loud, overpriced, and increasingly frantic. I found myself wondering how they were even affording him. They pointed fingers in every direction. At Grandma, the financial system, the bank, the pressures of retirement. At one point, they even tried the "we thought she'd squander it" defense, which earned a very visible eye roll from the judge. The verdict came down: guilty. Financial theft, breach of fiduciary duty, deception involving an illegal heir. Due to their age and the fact that the crime was nonviolent, the judge sentenced them to 1 year of probation and community service. Instead of enjoying sunsets in Santorini, they were now collecting trash and organizing documents at city offices. Photos made their way online, my mother in a neon orange vest, scowling at a fast food wrapper like it had personally insulted her. My father looking helpless, broom in hand. We didn't share the images, but we certainly saw them. Then Greg called again. "Are you sitting down?" he asked. Turns out, my parents had attempted to move a significant sum from accounts they had failed to disclose during the civil case, funneling the money into an offshore platform under my aunt's name. There was a digital trail leading straight back to them. "It's a clear violation of the court order," Greg said. "We're filing again." The second trial didn't drag. Fraud, intent to conceal assets, attempting to avoid repayment. This time, they came to court dressed in the same outfits they wore for community service. For once, my mother said nothing. My father didn't look at anyone. Even their lawyer kept a flat expression. The judge sentenced them to 1 year in actual prison. No suspension, no plea deal, no loophole. They were handcuffed in front of us and escorted out of the courtroom. No one rose, no one objected, no one shed a tear. I didn't feel triumph, I felt justice. And something else, something gentler. Relief. Isla finally received the remainder of her inheritance. It wasn't the full amount, but it was still enough to change her life. She cleared her medical debts, set aside funds for college, and then, without even consulting me, opened an investment account. She called it the Compound Project, a quiet tribute to Grandma. I asked if she planned to use the money soon. She smiled and said, "It's not for now, it's for something good later." When the final documents arrived, she handled the filing herself. She added just one handwritten line to the folder. "And some people don't deserve forgiveness, just consequences." I didn't write a word in response, I only nodded. Too far or just far enough? You tell me. Either way, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and stay tuned.